And that's your sports. Now, in less than 2 weeks, Americans will elect a new president, a historic event that will be watched closely by people around the continent and, of course, the world. BBC Swahili's Zuhura Yunus will be covering the event for us, and she's live now from Dallas, Texas. Zuhura.
Hi, Peter. Yes, I'm in Dallas live. As you can see, it's quite sunny. So the first thing that I really was interested in is the relation between Africans and African Americans. Although they have the same ancestral links, but they don't really get along as most of people might think. We went to one of the girls' group, but most of them were originally from Africa, or the parents were from Africa. And then we went to another group where they had a cultural group, but all of them, almost all of them, were African Americans. So it wasn't that easy to get a mixture of Africans and African Americans, and this is what I gathered.
The beat of African culture is strong here in Texas. And a growing number of African Americans are trying to connect with their roots.
Personally, if I was not a citizen...
Dallas is now home to more than 100,000 Africans, but it hasn't been easy for everyone to feel like they belong.
It's kind of that constant struggle of like, we're here, so we're no longer in Africa, and we're trying to fit in, but we're not really labeled as Africans here, we're labeled as African Americans, right? And then once you kind of go towards that African-American side, then you're no longer, you're a sellout, or you are not African anymore. You're losing your identity.
But despite the identity struggles, Africans living in the United States say that as the election approaches, the issues that matter to them are the same as any other American.
Although Dallas is a hub of diversity, many African immigrants would not be able to vote in these elections because they are not yet American citizens.
They knew me before, so it was not a problem.
Tanzanian Nyangi is one African who can't yet vote, although he's married to African-American Tamara. But the cultural differences between them have never caused any problems.
It don't bother me too much because his friends, they come over and they be speaking their language. I just sit there and watch TV. Sometimes I'm nosy, so I be going back and forth like, okay, what?
But I thought because you all have ancestral links, why wouldn't African Americans want to know more about Africa through Africans?
It's hard, but for them, they think like Africans hate them. And we think like they don't really want to, like we don't really want to know them, you know? So it's like a gap, and nobody will really want to cross that gap or close it.
We have an attitude, they be like, oh, that's y'all Americans, or Americans do say, oh, that's y'all Africans. All y'all have our attitudes.
Competing for the job.
There are signs those attitudes are changing as America's first black president nears the end of his term in the White House. And there are hopes that regardless of who wins these elections, the relationship between African Americans and Africans living here will continue to grow.
Joining me now is Professor Alex Mwakikoti. He's a professor of sociology at Twilight College here in Texas. Professor, is it improving now?
The relationship, I would say it is in some ways, but you really can't rule out that everything is going well. Perhaps what is improving are those children of the Africans, immigrants, and the African Americans, because the African immigrant children, they don't really have any culture as per se. They simply feel like they have like so many cultures around them. When they go to school, they have a different culture. When they come home, they have a different culture. And so I think the improvement is more to the children as opposed to the immigrants themselves. In some ways, I would say that.
Is this relationship between African Americans and Africans historical?
I would say so, because when you look at the historical background of both groups, the African Americans have had this historical issues that have been embedded in their lives. For example, the slavery. That is one of the things that excuse me, have carried on through the years. And in many cases, the African Americans would say that the Africans do not know their experience of this slavery, and therefore they can't understand them.
When it comes to elections, do you think the issues that African Americans have and Africans are different?
I would say some of them may be different. When it comes to economy, it is like the same. But when it comes to immigration, for example, something that some of the candidates have championed, those can be sour to the immigrants, because they really don't see that they would maybe survive if at all some of those who wants to take them out will actually do that.
Thank you very much. That is Dr. Alex Mwakikoti from Wiley College here in Texas. Peter Okoche.
Many thanks, Zuhura. And Zuhura will be in the States for the next 2 weeks, like I said, reporting on all things U.S. elections for us.